Eternals, 2021, big budget, bad box office. Here we go.
Let's do it.
I don't even know what to say.
Movies. The average person can be inspired by them. They can make us laugh. Movies can keep us on the edge of our seat, and so much more. Maddie's Movie Mix is a podcast for movie enthusiasts of all kinds. We hope you enjoy the show.
Wait. Weighing in at 100 and... Weighing in at 100 and... Matt Logan!
Yes, we both had the same problem. You.
So what now? Where's the stuff?
Listen! You smell something?
Yippee-ki-yay. This is Tyler Peterson.
This was it was flat for me.
Yeah, there was, I couldn't relate to a lot of the stuff going on. And by relate, I couldn't connect with this, what was being told.
So as we're doing this podcast, recording it, 182 million is what the box office did.
Okay.
They say the budget was 200 million. And that's pretty bad for being out. This came out on the 5th of November, I believe. And that's lousy.
It's one of the worst performances by a Marvel film ever.
It's got to be. Did you look it up?
No, but it's bad.
It is bad. I know. I'm like trying to be like, what do we do here? How to talk about it? But the reality is, it didn't do very well, and I wasn't super impressed with it.
Yeah.
How are you? It's almost like they should have taken a break from some of the other. I mean, they kind of did with the pandemic and everything, I guess.
Yep.
But it seems like they maybe should have taken like a 5-year break, like Star Trek does, or like you know what I mean?
Let's do a reboot. Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like they should have done that with this, because this was the big one.
Yeah, this was the one that was going to hopefully kick things off.
Yeah,
going into the next phase 5
or something. I mean, it's the 26th movie, so obviously I'm kidding, but yeah. So I was wow, like, is this a Marvel or is this a DC?
Hey, I like DC films, so let's not go to that route.
I know. I had to take the knife out a little bit and jab it into the side there.
Oh, I feel it. Right in the back.
I'm entertained by the DC movies. I just think that they're not as structured, as far as like it just doesn't make sense. They're not real congruent, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, I think the thing that Marvel, the thing I see between the two universes that I think DC is slowly changing is that Marvel typically has more humor throughout the films. I think it has to deal with Disney, and I've seen a change with. I mean, Iron Man was the first one, and it was good, but there wasn't a ton of humor. It was more adult focused, and then they started going more kid and focused, and so they add a lot of humor. DC to me is a lot more, I say realistic, but we're talking about superheroes, but like the backgrounds and stuff like that seem to me more of real settings if you're basing it off of Earth.
Yeah, no. That.
So I think that's the hardest part when you're looking at the different audiences, is that it is too, besides the fandom that like the comics.
Well, did you catch that though in the Eternals?
I was surprised that they were able to get away with that Superman reference.
Right.
I was like, wait a second.
Yeah.
That's what film? Maybe that's why it was so bad, because they're making fun of DC, and that's normally how their films they feel them as. So let's just throw Superman out there, and
right?
Maybe they won't know that we're Marvel.
They saw the writing on the wall as that was probably a post production shoot.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Icarus too. I mean,
yeah,
the Superman parallels are just
And so you obviously have to look at, like, do you care to look at it? Do you not care to look at it? What's the difference between, okay, was Superman, did they come out first? Or, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and it's like, who cares to me? I mean, I thought it was funny they made the reference.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I just, again, wasn't expecting it.
No,
because
right.
you don't see those with those rivals.
Yeah, exactly. But it was cool that they did, simply because they're the Eternals and they've been there for 7,000 years.
Yeah.
And so obviously they're going to see all this stuff that's happening, and why it was good too that they. Okay, spoilers. We're going to have spoilers.
Look at that.
in
We
here.
said spoilers before the spoilers.
We are growing. Maybe now that we've talked about this, I should shoot a little thing at the beginning and say, hey, there are going to be spoilers, and we're saying it again. But we're going to have a lot of spoilers in this one for sure.
Yeah.
And here's one of them. I think this actually might not be a spoiler now that I say that out loud, because I think it
better be, because you did a big build-up.
I did a huge build-up. But no, they referenced why didn't the Eternals help, right? Like,
you're right. Why did when
mankind?
Thanos and mankind needed the most? Yeah.
So that was good. So was that in the preview of the trailer?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Okay. I thought there was a little something.
So if you haven't
that.
seen the trailer, spoiler.
Yeah. I think maybe we're just not prepared for this as mentally prepared for this podcast.
Yeah.
We're doing this 2 hours earlier than
I know.
normal.
We're almost awake.
Yeah, exactly. and this might be a good spot if you're still watching or listening. Tyler, we're growing, man.
Are we?
I don't know I don't think I've said anything the last few days to you, but we are doing, let me look here. From where we started, our listens are up 372%.
We're giving more than 110% then, right?
So
thank you so much for listening.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Thank you. So that's the listens. Yeah, I haven't looked at. I didn't have time today to look at what the views are on YouTube, but YouTube's never been super strong for me anyway. It's all about the listens. So we appreciate you listening.
Yeah, and nobody wants to see my face anyway, so you better just keep listening.
Yeah. And I'm doing No Shave November for the first time in my life, so
now you can have a video to track the growth.
That's true. Yeah, you
changing.
showed up today and you were like, "Who's in Matt's seat?"
There's something growing on your face.
Right. I digress.
And now, a quick break for you to think about how much you love the narrator of this podcast. And now, back to the episode.
There was a lot in this film. They did put a lot in there.
It's, I think, the longest or second longest Marvel film.
Sure. And you could tell.
Yeah. And they needed more time to develop all the characters that were in it.
Should they have done more parts? Should they have maybe like Iron Man? I mean, they really developed that character pretty fast in the Iron Man in the first film.
Right.
Should they have done something like that here? They kind of did a little bit, but there was so much missing. But there's so many characters.
I think that's the hard part when you have, the comics, there were, I think, 14 Eternal characters. And actually, Thanos originally was
it? Yeah,
considered an
Eternal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the nice thing about Iron Man, Thor, Captain America is that it's a single character that they can do a film on. The issue with Eternals is that there are 12 characters, and it would be incredibly difficult to split them up unless, in the film, you would see current times, and then you would see past timelines.
Yeah.
And so maybe they could have developed specifically like Ajax, Icarus, and Cersei's characters, and some of those, and basically kind of a prequel film where they could develop those characters so that the time they got to this movie, they didn't have to focus on those relationships and now able to focus on the storyline that they were trying to tell.
Yeah, because when we're looking at a Marvel movie now, we're looking at, obviously they started with Iron Man. This boot up. I mean, they did some other Marvel movies back, 90s even?
Yes.
That were horrible, but not going to talk about those for sure. Hopefully ever.
Yeah.
Bored around a campfire.
That's right.
Yeah, but So, but this boot up in 2008, I think, is when it was.
Yep.
They really developed Iron Man. Obviously, he was the core, no pun intended, the core of the universe.
Yeah.
And they knew that he would be.
And they invested into Rob. It was a big deal when they cast Robert Downey Jr. because he was going through some personal issues that it was a risk to cast him and then base this whole universe that they were trying to set up on this Iron Man character, and it worked.
It did work really well.
Yeah.
So should they have focused on that with this? Because let me give you the whole thought process that I had when I was watching this, and I thought about it afterwards. So you look at it, and so Iron Man, the core,
Yep.
right? He's part of the Avengers, though.
Yes.
So there's the Eternals, so there's the 12 of them.
Yep.
And then should they have done something similar? Like, I mean, Icarus, obviously, he's a big character. They the actor that played him, he was Rob Stark.
Thrones, yeah.
And so he's well known.
It was almost a Game of Thrones recast.
It was,
movie.
I know,
Yeah.
right? Exactly.
Even the composer.
Yeah,
That was amazing.
Yep. And we talked about that in another podcast too. It really seems that they're like, they work well together, so they hire a lot of the same people. And
Right.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Campfire and sing Kumbaya, I'm sure, often. But
Around the Babylonian
temple.
temple.
That was kind of cool too.
Yeah,
but anyway, so when they were trying to talk about these characters in this movie, and there were so many of the characters, it was like it was kind of confusing. I mean, you knew they were all together. Obviously, that's pretty obvious.
Yep.
But there wasn't really that core like Iron Man. Like Iron Man, you saw him at the top of his game, and he suffered at the hands of the terrorists, and developed.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you kind of guess fell in love with the character,
Right.
and you couldn't do that in this movie.
Right. Yeah, and again, I think
there just wasn't a place to.
no, there was not enough time to develop that relationship with the characters, and so I think the hard part going into Eternals, going to your question, if they should have split up each character and kind of done a film to get to understand that character more, it would have been difficult because these characters are all rooted from the same. And they did end up taking different timelines, but again, I don't know how they would have done stories then to connect it to one.
But think about it this way. For me, it was they were all split up,
Yep.
and they got back together.
Right.
Okay, so you could have developed a character that way.
You could have.
You could have gone like Captain Marvel was in the 90s.
Yep.
That was the kind of time frame, right?
Yep.
They could have done something similar to that.
Right.
They with the Avengers in the background type thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that could have been kind of going on. I mean, they literally could have had like an eternal watching over what was happening, making sure the Deviants or whatever weren't there involved, or
Yeah.
to develop a character, because it's going to be hard for me to watch another one of these. I'll just be honest.
Yep.
And that's hard for me because I love Marvel stuff.
Right.
They've done such a good job since Iron Man.
Yeah, and I'm sure they could have, but I think it would have been incredibly. I think it was a tough situation no matter which way they would have played or rolled the dice, because you're either now creating. You would have to create at least 5+ films individually then to get this Eternals, which that's a lot of commitment, and it's still not technically the Avengers, which is what that's what we've come accustomed to when we get people gathered together.
Right.
And so I think they could have. I think maybe if you're looking, Disney Plus is doing a lot of individual story TV shows and stuff like that, and all those have been pretty good for the most part. And so maybe they just focused on that and did some, we're going to do these short series with each of these Eternal characters and build up some of the storyline so that by the time you watch the Eternals movie, it isn't like this huge Avengers thing, but at least we still have some background on each character before. You can have some backstory if you're that invested to go into watch these short series and then watch Eternals.
Yeah.
But again, I think it would have been really difficult either way.
Yeah, but no, that's a good point. As you were talking, I was thinking, maybe they could have taken the real big parts of this film and gotten rid of the character development and all of that altogether, I think, and it still would have been the same entertainment value to me.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, and then I would have come back and I'm like, oh, I want to learn a little bit more.
Yeah,
Why don't
exactly.
you, shoot another film and half a dozen of them in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but anyway, I think that they missed it on this. It was too long. It was, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. So do we want to go into the grading?
Let's get into it because I don't know. I will say Kevin Feige, though, he seems to be a very master planner.
Yep.
Like he brought all this together.
Yeah.
And there's got to be something here, like, that we don't know.
Yeah, and watching the film, there was parts of the movie of like, am I missing something where they're going to be doing something later to have this make more sense?
Yeah.
Specifically, now this is spoilers, not in the trailer, but Dane Whitman's character, played by Kit Harington, it did not make sense to me why he was in this movie. I mean, he felt forced in, but then you go to the end credit stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously he is going to have a huge role going forward. But in the film, I'm like, he was in there for like 15 minutes. And his character felt awkward because he came in as a relationship. And then, Cersei met, or Icarus came again. And then all of a sudden they're off together. And you get the one like FaceTime where like, oh, how's it going, Cersei?
Yeah.
And so
that was super awkward.
Yeah, it felt so forced. And so things like that happen where I'm like, are there things in this film currently going on that I don't understand it because they haven't gone into those depths? Again, maybe the character development of each character, or are they doing something bigger with Marvel? So again, yeah, and we'll talk about later with the timing, pacing, and stuff like that. But it was not well done.
Yeah. Let's start it off.
Let's just go into actor chemistry.
Okay.
They had a lot of big names. You can't blame them not going out and getting these huge A-list actors because almost every single one of them is pretty well established. Especially when you're going to like Angelina Jolie, Kit Harington.
She was in this?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Everybody knows she was in this. I'm kidding. Whether you like Angelina Jolie or not, she is a super talented actor.
Right.
But go ahead. Keep going. Sorry.
But yeah, you got all these A-list actors, and again, maybe it was because they weren't able to develop those characters, but they felt very awkward together.
They did. They did feel awkward, and I had to look at it before you give your score. I just want to. I had to look at it like from how did they perform on screen.
Yep.
I think the story was probably part of the. It was mainly the issue for me. Like the story wasn't very good. It just didn't flow in some of that. So I had to like get rid of the story in my head, right? And like think about how are they interacting together? Do I believe it? Stuff like that. So.
And now a quick break from the podcast because listening sometimes just gets draining, just like water drains down a sink. Okay.
But I want to talk about Gemma Chan. Did I say her name right? I'm terrible at reading names. I'm so sorry if I screw names up.
Cersei's character.
Cersei's character. She was in Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I saw that. I don't remember her role.
She was one of the blue people.
Oh, is it the Shapeshifters?
I'm trying to. I had it here because I just looked it up.
I saw that movie once.
Yeah. She played Minerva.
Okay.
She was the Kree tactical sniper. She was one of the. She was. She had that. She was always trying to shoot.
Oh,
trying to snipe. If you remember. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the character. So what was interesting to me when I was looking at this, and I didn't catch that right away, but there's a few actors that played more characters.
Yeah.
Right? Like Thanos.
Right.
And he did Deadpool?
Yes. But
Yeah,
technically they weren't acquired or were they?
Yeah. They weren't super mixed in the same universe.
Well, because I know that Disney bought Fox at some point. I can't remember when they did that, but I think it was like after Deadpool. I guess Deadpool 2 has been out for a while. I guess.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but yeah, it's interesting how you get different actors playing within the same universe, but they're playing different characters.
Yeah.
And I think Marvel is so built up at this point of like, how do you find people who haven't played some sort of role in one of their movies?
Yeah. So when is Robert Downey Jr. going to play somebody else? What's your score?
For actor chemistry, I give it a 3.2.
Yeah.
I did not like it. Did
you not like it because of the interactions, or what didn't you like?
The character relationships, the only one I really enjoyed was Gilgamesh and actually Thena's character. That seemed, again, I wish it was more developed? Absolutely. But I thought they understand their relationship together, and you could see they cared for each other. When it comes to some of the other characters, I just didn't see them. Like Ajak, like she was this motherly character that was over all of these other Eternals, and I just didn't feel like there was a connection. So when she died, I was like, and they killed her. Spoiler.
I know.
They killed her off so early that you really couldn't be like. At that point, I was like,
there was no emotional attachment.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then again, spoiler, when you find out that Icarus was the one that fed her to the wolves, almost to the Deviants.
Yeah.
It's like, well, actually, I guess I kind of care about this character more because we did some flashbacks where you understand this character. But when she first, I was like, all right. And especially with it being Salma Hayek, and she was one of the, like, promotion-wise, like, she was one of the people I was seeing most.
Yeah, exactly. She was like the ambassador for this show.
And
this
so
film.
I was like, oh, they killed it off right away. So let's see how this goes. And so again, as its story, as actors, I think they play together quite a bit. And so the relationships didn't feel authentic. Like Icarus to Cersei, I was like, all right.
See, I believed that one.
But 5,000 years and then come back, and then just spoiler, kill yourself in the sun.
Right. I'm not sure that really is the way it went down. That's the way I think we're supposed. That's why I say Kevin Feige. He's got something going on here. I think.
Yeah.
I think that he's just gonna. Bella wants to be on tonight again, but
she has strong feelings about the Eternals.
I know, exactly. But anyway, I gave it a 3.7 because I had to, like I said, get rid of like the storyline in my mind, and I had to look at the different, like Gilgamesh and Thena, and how they really interacted with each other, and did I believe it? Yeah. And see, I did believe it. They're very talented actors, every one of them, really. Yeah. They did a great job with the comedic relief of the vlogger, I guess, guy that you would, the assistant
Karen?
that was kind of,
Karun, I think.
That came in and was like vlogging everything, and so
but that still just seemed odd to me.
It was odd, but it worked. Like for me,
yeah,
I'm like, I get that, you know.
Kingo is such an interesting character.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had to really compartmentalize that one.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have a bad attitude about it. Like, I did have a bad attitude about it, right?
Right.
But I'm like, okay, how can I look at this so it's like I remove my feelings on like the overall.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what could they do with the story that they were given?
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Filming locations.
I really enjoyed Babylon.
Yeah.
I gave it, this is, I think, the highest I gave any of the the different things we split. I gave it 3.7.
Okay.
I really enjoyed, you talk about, the red dress. Babylon, that blue was like, that is spectacular. Again, we didn't spend a ton of time there, but when I saw it, I was like, that stands out to me.
Yeah.
And some of the London scenes were pretty cool to watch. So you got the nightlife, you got the main streets and stuff like that. I really liked space when they go to Airmish and the ambience of the galaxy and this eternal creator. And so this is what I thought was the coolest thing about the film was those the locations they were at, because I thought each one was intriguing to see.
Yeah, I gave it quite a bit higher score than you did.
Yeah.
Because I did like a lot of those things, even when he was, spoiler, flying into the sun.
Again, felt very Superman, except Superman needs the sun, and he did,
right,
for whatever purposes he went to the sun.
Exactly. But just that's a location, right? The sun's a location.
It is.
And so I was like, wow, that's cool. Like they put that in as like, this is a prime location in this film, even though it was for a few seconds.
Yeah.
But they made a big deal out of it, obviously.
Well, they flew past the sun too in their ship.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And so, and then they did, was it Egypt?
Yeah, I think so.
I think they did Egypt.
They did
Australia,
Brazil. They had the Amazon.
Yeah, the Amazon. Just a lot of different
sets.
Totally, believable. You would expect the Eternals that have been there for 7,000 years to be all over the place.
Yeah,
that's kind of, I guess, my point.
Yeah,
you would expect,
and they were,
that. And they were. Chicago.
Yeah,
and stuff like that. So that was pretty fun for me. So that's why I gave it a higher score than you did, and that's a 4.4.
Okay,
is what I gave for filming locations, because I was happy to see that they were just all over the place.
Yeah, and they did a good job really showing those locations.
Yeah,
I didn't like the end where that climactic where Earth getting collapsed. I thought that could have been more spiced up.
Yeah.
Than what they did. So that was the main part of the reason I gave it less. Was like, well, we're building up to this final scene. I was like, they could have done more.
The final scene was a bit of a letdown.
Yeah,
I agree.
So cinematography,
that big word that
That's
we
right.
like.
We say it each week.
That's right. When it was dark, it was dark, and when it was supposed to be light, it was light. When they were in different locations, it was believable.
Yeah.
I was happy with that. There's a lot of things that you see, and it's nighttime, and yet there's this, their face is lit up really well,
right?
And it's like, I know.
And that gold, when they're using the powers, that gold was really cool.
Yeah, and so I'm like, that's so it was just, they did a good job. They thought a lot about what was happening. Obviously, they better. $200 million budget,
right?
But, so 4.1 on that. I know you didn't do very high on it, but
I gave it a 3.3.
Sure. You just had a bad attitude about this one.
I did not like it.
Yeah.
And here's where I struggled when it comes to the film. Obviously, or not obviously, what they do is they do a lot of present time and flashbacks, going back to different storylines they had in the past with each other. And I had a hard time, specifically the first time they did it, where they were in the present time, and then all of a sudden, mentally I was like, I'm pretty sure they're in a past timeline right now. But I didn't know. there was no indication of like.
It's probably because you fell asleep for a minute.
That's right. The heated seating was like, oh, okay. I zoned out. But the first one, they like, because typically what they do is they at least tell you of like, oh, past.
Yeah.
But the
like
first one,
Babylon.
yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the first time they did it, they spent like 30, 45. I didn't count it, but it was a long time before they actually established of like, oh, we're actually not in the present timeline.
Yeah.
And with everything that they can do with their powers and things like that, you're like, well, are they in present time, or are they trying to establish something in the past? Even like, because I mean, again, with Ajax's character, she died off, but so when you see her, you're assuming that now we're in a previous timeline, and so that really was hard. Like not hard. Like I was mostly able to focus, but threw me off when I was watching it. Of like, so where are we at right now? Are we going further in the story that they're telling the present timeline, or are we doing more character based establishment stuff? And so I thought they could have done a lot better job with that overall, and I think that really affected some of the pacing of the film with how some things were shot. And the one thing I did think was pretty cool is how they went to Aramish, where that pebble thing goes out of their throat and then comes back in, and then boom, we got this red. Now we got Aramish. I thought that was really well done, but for the rest of it, I thought it could have been better done.
Sure. It's hard to. I get it. It's hard when you're not all into something. It's hard to like. Yeah, I get it. I get it. Costume design. So this is my kind of movie, really, for costume design, because I like the over the top, like hey, look at me. I'm unique, or whatever. As I say, the red dress in the
That's
Matrix. Right. And there was plenty of that.
Yeah, I lied. This is actually the highest one I gave.
Okay. So you were lying earlier?
I did lie. I apologize.
No, I'm just teasing you.
My negative Nelly was like, nothing gets better after this.
Right. And so I obviously their street clothes or whatever you want to say with that was normal, and it blended right in, and that's perfect. But when it was supposed to be an Iron Man suit or red dress, it was like, here I am. Yep. This is cool. I'm the stuff.
That's right.
And I like that.
Top dog. Yeah.
I like that. So I gave it a 4.7 on costumes.
Yeah, I gave it a 4.5. I did really enjoy the different outfits that they had for each character, both from their street clothes to their Eternals outfit, or their super suit, whatever you want to call it. Where's my super suit? And then it's I like that each one had a different color with it, so you could really, this is this character, this is that character. Even Tina's character, I mean, I think that was the big red dress, was like, she was a stylish Eternal, and her outfit stood out the most, whether it was the white or whatever it was, but her outfit stood out. Aramish, the bright red, again going that pebble thing when they established that character, like, oh, we're going to see this huge character, and he felt massive.
Yeah.
Which was really cool to see. Some of the Deviants, I guess I don't read the comics. I wish they would have done maybe a little bit more with those characters. But yeah, for the most part, I really enjoyed each character, and their personality fit within their outfit as well.
Yeah, I agree. What are we going to do next?
Score
the score.
Score the score. You know who the composer was in this one? You recognize that he did Game of Thrones.
I did, yeah. I read about him before. Well, I read about a lot of this before going to the film.
Yeah.
I had his name on my notes here, but I don't know where I put him.
It's Ramin Djawadi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correct. That's
I must be on this page. Yeah.
I didn't know of him before.
I hadn't heard of him before either.
He did the first Iron Man too.
Yeah.
Which I saw. So this is...
So he was young then.
Yeah.
Like... He's young now. He's my age, bro. I didn't realize he had been around. He's not a recognizable name.
No.
But he's done a lot of really big things, so I was really, really happy with that.
Yeah,
He did a
Pacific
good
Rim
job.
made sense too.
Yeah.
I got Pacific Rim vibes from the
Sure.
film with even just how things were shot, those characters that were I forget what they're called. What was Aramish's character technically called?
Celestial.
Celestial. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Celestial characters kind of reminded me of the robots in Pacific Rim that they fought
sure.
each other.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so he's done quite a few, and I mean he's done Game of Thrones, so there's that connection as
Quite
well.
a bit of Game of Thrones is what I remember reading.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I really enjoy at least the main theme. My nerd side, the main theme of Game of Thrones reminds me of Legend of Zelda every time it starts. And so I'm like, is this Legend of Zelda or is this Game of Thrones? And then like 3 seconds later, I got it. But for this film, specifically for the score, it had a very Bollywood feel to it, which made sense at times, especially when you're going with Kingo's character. It threw me off most of the time, though, because I felt that theme was kind of overarching throughout it, which didn't always make sense to me with the settings that they were in.
Yeah.
So I gave it a 3.7 on this one. It definitely left me wanting more to the music to set up the scene, which I thought it could have done better in certain situations.
I don't disagree with that. I gave it a little higher than you did. I gave it a 3.9 because when there were, I really enjoyed some of the intense scenes, and the music was right there with it.
Right.
And I really enjoyed that. Otherwise, had that been missing, I probably would have been at like a 2.9 or something. Because I wasn't super impressed with like the overall feel of it.
Yeah.
But it did when it called for those more intense scenes, it was there for you.
Right.
And that really brought the score up for me.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
Overall entertainment value,
I gave it a 3.4.
yeah. I gave it a 3.5. I'll just get that out there too.
The pacing of the movie really was the hardest part about enjoying it because it seemed off. I wish they wouldn't have killed Ajax's character so early, because I think going throughout the film and being able to see her development and the influence that she had on the other Eternals, I was like, well, this character is really important. But then you realize, she's dead, so it really doesn't matter about her backstory.
Her backstory,
because she's not there in the present story. I felt they didn't know what relationship to focus on within the films. I mean, obviously Cersei and Icarus was a very important one, but then you have, Kingo, you have Sprite, you have Thena, you have Gilgamesh, and so I thought Sprite's character was trying to be tied to Cersei, but being tied to Ajax, and then now Kingo, and so I just felt they had issues trying to know what relationships and where they were headed towards through the film. And I also did not like how the evolved Deviant died. It seemed very anticlimactic.
Didn't like that, huh?
No. Well, he was going around taking people's powers, and all of a sudden, spoiler, like, Thena, it's like, nope, and then just slices them, and then that's the end of that.
Yeah. I had to look that up. And Thena and that Deviant, gosh, didn't put the name in, but they had, in the comics, they had like a relationship. Like, I don't know how serious it was, but you know what I mean? Like,
that's right.
So I had to look up because it seemed a little bit like weird. I didn't understand it at all for sure. But then like the way she felt about it, and then just suddenly killed him, and her memory issue, and
Yeah.
I didn't understand it, but I did like how he died.
I thought the slice and dice thing was cool of where, he just, but I thought, they could have built that fight scene a little bit longer after she been woke from whatever.
It probably was longer, but then they figured they had to cut some things out.
Let's just kill them quickly.
Let's left some other things in they shouldn't have, and kill them off quickly. But that brings my overall to 3.9.
Okay.
That's I know I'm being generous on some of these things, and I really wanted to compartmentalize, some of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Which gets us to the final overall score.
Yeah, that was my overall, was 3.9. The 3.5 I gave you, right?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I stuck with my overall entertainment, which is a 3.4.
Sure.
Especially, I think the hard part is you have so many. This is the 26th Marvel film.
Yep.
And they have such a history of, each one being at least pretty standout, especially, again, in my mind, a lot of the not side characters, but characters aren't as well known. So Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy, like those films I've really enjoyed because they were able to build those characters up so well. Again, it was a smaller ensemble, so it was a little bit easier to do. And so I was looking forward to Eternals of, I don't really know much about these characters, and I felt like I left with not much more knowledge about them.
Yeah. Let's talk about, as we wrap this sucker up, let's talk about the next film. They're going to do a next film. They have to.
Yeah, those post-credit scenes
yeah,
definitely built up towards more. Thanos' brother.
Right.
Played by Harry Styles.
Yeah.
That
was like... And you text me.
It's going to be a musical.
Right. and because, I know. You text me and like, I can't remember how you worded it, but you were like, there's 2 end credit scenes or whatever.
Yeah.
So don't go anywhere or whatever, however you worded it.
Well, I liked the end credit, even if they're good or not.
Yeah. I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was like, make sure you stay.
That's right.
'Cause there's 2. That was like laughably confusing, the first one with Harry Styles and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
All right. Well, stay tuned for that.
Right. But then
you get this character that didn't have much of a spotlight during the whole film get its own post-credit scene.
That was pretty incredible. So are they setting up for, that would be the Black Knight, I believe?
I think so.
Which the Black Knight, he travels through time too.
Yeah, this next phase is going to be very interesting. You got the multiverse.
Right.
You got time travel, which I've never really enjoyed in films when they're building a huge universe because they can just change things. But that's a whole different tangent.
I agree too.
But yeah, I thought, again, that's where I struggle. I was like, I felt like his character was in there just for the second post-credit scene.
Totally. Yeah. I'm ready.
Yeah.
Bring it.
Yeah. I am really excited. Again, hopefully they just make a solo film for that character that we can really dive into that character and not be tied into maybe another universe. But that's my thoughts on it. Let's really just invest on each character.
You think he'll be in Doctor Strange coming up?
He could be.
I think there's a chance.
I think there's really, when it comes to these next movies, Spider-Man Multiverse.
Yeah.
They have so many different characters coming into that, and what they're building up towards of like, well, now there's multi-dimensions. We're bringing back Doc Ock from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. So how big of an impact is this going to have going forward? So I'm really intrigued to see Spider-Man 3 because, I mean, this film stands alone in the universe. It really, you could watch all the other. I would think you could watch all the other films because it doesn't seem like it has a huge impact besides maybe the Celestial being stuck on the ground. But this next Spider-Man 3 is going to be one that's like, You got Doctor Strange, you got Spider-Man. I'm sure there's going to be other Marvel characters in this film as well, our heroes. And I think it's going to really change the trajectory going forward because Doctor Strange is also focused on the multiverse.
Yes. Can't wait.
Yeah. So luckily, it didn't take me from those films.
Right. Totally. Is that a wrap?
That's a wrap. We talked about it.
That's a wrap.
Okay, so I'll see you later, huh? I'll give you a call.
So it's done.
It's done.